Hello again. William Schnell, in the chapter of 30 Years of Watchtower Slave, bringing Zone 1 into line, is talking about all the legal actions that were undertaken to clear the way for the theocracy in the zones that Schnell was serving in those days in Ohio. This is the Martin versus Struthers case. The legal desk kept after me to raise an issue and bring it all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. I selected the town of Struthers, Ohio for this purpose. For years, Youngstown witnesses had backed down in Struthers, where officials refused to let the witnesses work on Sunday because they had a bell-ringing ordinance to safeguard peace on Sunday. Their claim was that our doorbell ringing on Sunday mornings would awaken them from their slumbers prematurely. When I read the ordinance, it conjured up wonderful opportunities in my mind. I mused, if the Struthers people do not like doorbell ringing by us on Sunday mornings, how come they stand for the ringing of church bells that same day? As a result of my musing, I set a campaign for a given Sunday morning. As it progressed, the mayor soon accosted me. Being a kind man, he suggested we leave peaceably and ordered that the ones who had been arrested should be released. But this time we did not back down. We came back for more the next Sunday. Arrests occurred, and I called for help from Youngstown, but the leaders there refused to budge. They had the backing of the Adams Street clique of would-be leaders of the society, while I had instructions from the legal desk. Besides, I had charge of the zone, so I turned around and called in the zone, and the issue was joined until the jails were filled. I knew that when you start a fight, you cannot stop to think whether it is right or wrong. You just slug or fight until you win or lose. In the subsequent trial, those who had been arrested were convicted. We chose to appeal one case. This case became known as the Martin versus Struthers case, and as such stands in the journal entry in the Supreme Court of the United States. We carried this case all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the bell-ringing ordinance was knocked out. So ridiculous was the Struthers' contention about being awakened Sundays by our bell ringing that one of the Supreme Court justices in questioning the attorney for Struthers, asked, "What do you do when the church bells ring?" It left the solicitor hanging in midair, for he dared not speak disparagingly about that. But the Adams Street clique was now in the ascendancy, in proportion as the judge's health was going from bad to worse. Brooklyn was not applauding me this time. I received a letter instructing me to retard my accelerated visits and to get down to a weekly routine of visits in rotation. I knew now, as it was brought to my attention, that I was about to be replaced because of Struthers, but the legal desk intervened in my behalf for reasons of its own. Now he has a subhead, "The Society Safeguards Its Interests." With World War II looming ahead, the Watchtower Society was mindful of the authoritative status of their zone servants, fearing that some, following their early training, might make unguarded remarks regarding America's war effort, and recalling what happened to the Society in 1917 and 1918, the Society decided to terminate the zone work as of November 30th, 1941. Uncannily, they accomplished this just about a week before Pearl Harbor brought us into the shooting war. The Society now assumed a position of absolute neutrality. While they had contended and taught that they were taking care of God's work in the theocracy, they now switched front and put each one of us on our own. It mattered not to them whether that meant jail, concentration camps, or what might transpire. They would not be responsible, they said, and they washed their hands of all responsibility for us. It suddenly suited their purpose to remember Galatians 6:5, "Let every man bear his own burden." They changed their theocratic tune that they were the beast of burden, carrying our burdens. Leaving the witnesses in the lurch and to shift for themselves as best they could, the Society now proclaimed neutrality in order to keep its organization intact to fight another day. In many lands, including Canada, the Watchtower Society was banned. But Brooklyn was astute enough to stay in operation at all odds, for they really were working feverishly for their next step, namely, world theocracy. I've tried to give you a picture of the workings of the organization in these formative years of the theocracy of 1938, particularly of the behind-the-scenes fight for power and position between the newly forming Adams Street clique and the old guard. I've told you of their use of spies, flunkies, stooges, and dossiers. I want you to know and see that the Watchtower Society was like any other organization bent for power. Their claims to preach the gospel of the kingdom, while sincerely believed by many, was actually made to cover up the real purpose of forming so powerful a religious organization. Today, it claims America as its background. Tomorrow it will claim the world, and it hopes to give tone and direction to the world society of nations for 1,000 years to come. In anticipation of that total victory, it already calls itself the New World Society. Now, obviously, some might say Schnell's going over the top with this, his account of the ambition of the Adams Street clique that took over the Watchtower when Rutherford died. But I know, yes, New World Society, that phrase was everywhere when I joined in 1970-71, and it was very obvious from conversing with older witnesses who I went door to door with that that was their passion, that we're going to form the New World Society and when Armageddon soon comes. And of course, all those old guys that talked to me, the veteran pioneers that I went out with sometimes and got to know quite well and liked. Actually, I liked them. They had a lot of guts and they had a lot of personality compared to modern witnesses. But they were obsessed with the idea that Armageddon's coming soon and soon they were going to take over. So it was very much there, even diluted from this the version that Schnell's talking about here. See you next time for the next chapter, chapter 19, Establishing a Worldwide Theocracy. I'll put in a link to Nathan Knorr, Bill's Watchtower's Charitable Business Empire. This is the commentary of Ray Franz in In Search of Christian Freedom.